Welcome to Flourish in the Foreign, the award-winning podcast that celebrates, elevates, and affirms the voices and stories of Black women living and thriving abroad, while exploring living abroad as a pathway to wellness. I'm your host, Christine Job, a Black American woman with Trinidadian roots, a business strategist and consultant from Atlanta, living and thriving in Valencia, Spain. Hey everyone, welcome to Flourish in the Foreign. I'm your host, Christine Job, and I am so glad that you're here. This is, of course, a limited series, spooky series for the month of October, all about thriving abroad. Yes, no worries. The podcast interviews are on their way back. I am, in fact, in pre-production for season 6. Yep, it's true. But anyway, today's episode is particularly special to me because we're talking about honoring our ancestors through intentional living. I think that's something you can do whether you're living domestically or internationally. Living abroad is often seen as an act of personal liberation. And yes and no, but we'll talk about that in an upcoming episode for sure. But I personally believe that it can be a way of honoring those that came before us. Your decision to cultivate a life well lived, to embrace a freedom or a set of freedoms, to embrace wellness and joy is a continuation of the resilience, the strength, the wisdom, and the hope that your ancestors passed down to you. I firmly believe that. And so let's get into today's episode. Yay! So, what does it mean to honor your ancestors? This is something that I think is particular to, individuals, but also culture, right? For me, broadly, it's about recognizing the sacrifices, the struggles, the hopes, the dreams, and triumphs of those that came before me, that came before all of us. It's about acknowledging the ways in which their lives paved the path for the freedoms we enjoy today. Okay? Especially, I will say for me, when I think about passport privilege and the just ridiculousness of it and obvious discrimination of it, I also think about my ancestors that were brought to the Americas, to the Caribbean, and also to what is now known as the United States, and what they have given of themselves unwillingly, okay? We're not volunteers. I don't know why we got to say that, but okay. To build this country that enjoys so much excess and so much privilege. I think that is probably where my discomfort of passport privilege really lies. And I think some people might think about the same scenario and come to a different conclusion. But if you've heard me speak about passport privilege here or on other platforms, it is not something that I celebrate. It's not. I really don't. I really don't. And yet it is something that I enjoy inherently because it is this blue passport that I have been able to see all of this amazing world and to be able to migrate to Europe under very different circumstances than others who do not have this blue passport. So for me, when you choose to live abroad with intention, this is intentional, voluntary migration. Yes, it is. We are migrants. When you choose to prioritize your well-being, and that could also be economic and as well as physical and mental well-being. I know that people like to think economic migrants only come from certain countries, but geo arbitrage is a form of economic migration I would like to bring to everyone's attention. But, when you prioritize your well being, your growth, and your joy, I do believe you're honoring the strength and resilience of your ancestors. And to be able to migrate voluntarily and with such ease as a lot of us that hold these blue passports is an exercise of choice that many of our ancestors, perhaps some of our living elders, did not have that choice to do so. And I'd like for us to meditate on that. I think if you meditate on that, it will help to steer you away from escapism and the romanticization of moving abroad. And not to make it a sober endeavor, but I think you would understand maybe more clearly why I insist on moving abroad with intention. Because your life abroad is not separate from your ancestral story. It is a continuation of it, especially if you are from the African diaspora. Our lineage is one of migration, of involuntary and voluntary migration. So we're talking about the transatlantic slave trade, or we're talking about the Windrush generation from the Caribbean to the UK, when we're talking about the Great Migration from the South to the North and to the West. These are part of our ancestral stories. These are stories of migration and our decision to uproot ourselves and to seek the warmth of other suns is not new. It's not new. We are just a continuation of it. So whether you're the first in your family to live outside of your hometown or in your home country, or a part of a more dynamic and long tradition of migration, as you know it, your actions today are part of a legacy that your ancestors have passed down to you. Okay? You deciding to move yourself and your family so that you may not be racially menaced is something that your ancestors have passed down to you. Deciding to move so that you may have adequate health care, to be able to see doctors and things like that is not new. Okay? You moving so that you will have a better quality of life, better professional options, be able to live with dignity is not new. This is something that your ancestors have passed down to you. I think that's why you have felt this very strong clarion call within you to make this type of move. Living with intention abroad means embracing the freedom that they may not have had. And for me, sometimes it's about the absurdity of the places that I find myself in. And I think about what my great grandparents would have thought about the places I've been, let alone some of my ancestors from many, many generations ago. I think about that. It means creating new opportunities for yourself and for your descendants. And you may not have any direct descendants. I'm not really sure how genealogy works, but you may not have children. I don't have children, but I have a lot of play nieces and nephews and little cousins. And my decision to live my life in this way has impacted a lot of you who listen to this podcast, but it has impacted the people that are closest to me even more. And it's created opportunities for them as well. And so this really means living a life that honors the sacrifices of our ancestors by prioritizing the joy, the wellness, the fulfillment, the liberation, the choices that they were not able to experience, in which we have an abundance of. Yeah. It makes me emotional when I think about it. And I really urge you all to meditate on that. When we really think about where we have come from, the sacrifices that don't even seem like sacrifices, because some of the things that our ancestors have endured were not just inhumane, it's like unfathomable. I can't even go there. And to call them a sacrifice feels so small, to give of yourself and of your life for the hopes that your children or somebody down your lineage could have the choices and the freedoms in which we are enjoying, whether consciously, subconsciously, intentionally, or perhaps flippantly. It makes me emotional, and I try to anchor myself in that knowledge in everything that I do, but most especially in this migratory experience. Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying this episode of Flourish in the Foreign. And if you are, be sure to share this episode and of course support this podcast. You can do so by buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/flourishforeign and leaving me a nice note. I love when you guys leave me notes like that. It makes me feel so nice. You can also support this podcast by leaving a review of this podcast on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. Fun fact, Spotify now gives me the option to respond to your comments. So if you listen to this podcast on Spotify, you can leave comments, suggestions underneath each episode, and I can respond to you, which is really cool. It's a little bit more interactive that way. So be sure to do that. Also, make sure that if working with me in the Move Abroad with Intention coaching program is a priority for you, make sure that you get in contact, okay? Yes, do that. And if you're interested in starting your own business, check out my free training from marketable skill to business and get started today. All right, let's get back to this episode. So, how can you honor your ancestors while living abroad? Well, first of all, I think, of course, it's by living with intention, the choices you make. I think it's important for us to reflect upon and attempt to embody the strength and resilience and the hope that has been passed down through generations. Every time we choose to thrive, every time we choose joy, Every time we choose our wellness, okay, rather than just to survive, we're honoring the dreams that our ancestors have had for us. And that's why I have said, and I write, and I've been writing a lot about why, like, Black girl soft life is a very cute aesthetic. I love it. But it has to be an embodiment. As an embodiment, I think we honor our ancestors to participate and to live a life in which we can relax into softness, in which it is safe for us to be soft, for softness not to be a weakness or some foolish thing, but to be something that we embrace and we celebrate in ourselves and in each other. Second, I would say it's important for us to honor our ancestors by creating new traditions in your host or new country. So just because you're living abroad doesn't mean you have to leave your heritage behind. No, it doesn't. You can blend your cultural traditions with the new customs of your new country and create something unique that reflects both your past and your present. I would also take it a step further and say that not only create these new traditions, but to explore the possible connections between your new country and your home country and your heritage. For example, there is an extensive history of Black people in Spain. In fact, one of my past guests, L'Oreal Tharps, an incredible writer and just an amazing person, has done a project on Black history in Spain. And I urge you all to check it out if that's of interest to you. But to understand the history and the connection is not only intellectually stimulating, it is something that makes me feel perhaps a little bit more connected, especially in a country that is very homogenous like Spain. To learn about the Black history in Spain is something that is helpful for me. And perhaps exploring the Black history of your location might be helpful for you. And just a hint, a lot of Black history in non-Black countries gets hidden or erased. Okay? So you might have to do some digging, but we be out here and we've been out here for a long time. I would say the third way you can honor your ancestors while living abroad is by staying connected to your roots. This could mean cooking traditional foods, celebrating holidays from your culture, teaching your local friends or international friends your history, not the history they learned from Netflix or Hollywood, but your history about your people. I think that is really important. And it's a way for you to keep that connection alive for yourself. Also, if you have children, I think that is important as well. I know people have different religious philosophies and practices, but I also am a proponent of an altar space to honor your ancestors so that they can be invited into your home to see, wow, look at you living, migrating, voluntarily doing it, you know? But that's just a gentle suggestion from me. Now, if you're looking for some specific ways to deepen your connection with your ancestors while living abroad, here are a few tools that can help. The first one, y'all know it's coming. Journaling. You know, I love it. I love journaling. journaling prompts for some ancestral reflection. So take what resonates and leave what doesn't. But here's some things I'd love for you to just think about. The first would be, how do my actions today honor the sacrifices of my ancestors? And the second one would be, what traditions or values from my heritage do I want to carry forward in my life abroad? Right? If I could have a pan here in Spain, even though I don't know how to play pan, to be honest, and pan is steel drums. In Trinidad, we have an instrument called steel drum or pan. But, I think that would actually be really cool if I had my own pan here in my home in Spain, because my grandparents always had a set of pans in their home. So that's something that I would love to have. But you could think about what traditions and values from your heritage you would like to carry forward and how you would carry that forward in your life abroad. And the third journal prompt is this: how can I create a life that reflects both my cultural roots and my present circumstances? How can I create a life that reflects both my cultural roots and my present circumstances? And I feel like that question really sums up what moving abroad with intention is all about. I think that really sums up what cultivating a life well lived is all about. So let's move on to the second tool that can help you to deepen your connections with your ancestors while living abroad. I firmly believe in mindful practices to connect with your heritage and with your ancestors. I feel like y'all probably know that already, since I talk about wellness all the time and we talk about the different flavors of wellness and things like that. But I think you can also incorporate mindful practices that help you feel more connected to your heritage. So if you decide to set up an ancestor altar, I would invite you to meditate near your altar, pray for your ancestors and yourself too, or just setting aside some time each day to reflect on the strength of your lineage. Because, damn, look at you. Not only the things you've been through in your life, but your whole lineage. I think you should give yourself a hand clap for that. Yeah, big up to your ancestral lineage, right? And I also think like mindfully preparing foods that your family prepares or are tied to your heritage, I think is also a good practice to connect. I think, though, when you make these practices a regular part of your life, you will feel definitely more grounded in who you are and where you come from, no matter where in the world you choose to live. Yeah. So I encourage you to take some time this week to reflect on how your life abroad honors your ancestors. What are you doing today that continues their legacy? What can you do to live with more intention and joy in their honor in order to elevate them and to venerate them? I'd love to hear your reflections. I'm newly on Threads. I don't really know what I'm doing, but maybe I can learn. So find me there at Flourish in the Foreign. Please feel free to share your reflections on social media using the hashtag Flourish in the Foreign or tagging me. You can tag me in TikToks. I'll watch them. Or on Threads or Instagram. I think you can tag me on Facebook or shout me out on a YouTube. I think you'd have to I don't know if you can tag me on YouTube, but let me know and I'll definitely check it out because I'd love to hear your reflections. And so, if you would like more guidance on living abroad with intention, if you enjoyed this episode, if you were like, oh, wow, I didn't know Christine considers these things when she's talking about moving abroad with intention, well, I would suggest that you're new here, and that's okay. That's okay, honey. Come on. I invite you to check out my Move Abroad with Intention group coaching program. The doors close on the final slash only group coaching program I offered this year. Yeah, the doors close October 12th. So if you want an intimate group to cultivate a plan for you to go abroad with intention, I invite you to join us because we're going to dive into these types of reflections, and you'll be surrounded by like minded people who are also on a journey to live well abroad. And you can learn more in the description of this episode or at flourishintheflorin.com/MAI-course. I also have to mention that my Soft Life, Soft Business, the collective, my community of emerging and seasoned entrepreneurs is kicking off October 16th. Yes. And so if honoring your ancestors is by also going into entrepreneurship, like a lot of our ancestors had to, okay? We will talk about that in another episode. If that's part of your life abroad, or if that's part of your vision, is having a soft business that funds your soft life, I invite you to join me and learn more about what the collective is. It's a real cool space. I'm going to talk about it more. You can learn more in the description of this episode. And you can always go to my website. Yeah, ChristineJob.com. Thank you again for joining me today. Big thanks to Zachary Higgs for producing the music of this here podcast. And remember, it's not about moving abroad. It is not about just being abroad. Your ancestors, your people want you to thrive. They want you to flourish. So go abroad and cultivate a life well lived. I'll see you next time. Bye.